You're listening to the Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glenn Sarvati.
Welcome to another edition of the Big Cast. My name is Glenn Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology. And this week we got a whole bunch of interviews for you coming from last week's Fintech South that took place here in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll be talking to the day's MCs, who happen to also be hosts of the Rich and Regular podcast, Kirsten and Julian Saunders. I think you'll see very quickly why I felt it was important to track them down for an interview. And we've also got interviews with the founders of all three of the startup companies, the early stage fintechs that made it to the main stage to pitch for our Innovation Challenge competition. Those are Naya Chapman of Lux AI, John Patton of Street Charity, and Hussein Punjani of Agentix. So we'll be getting to that in just a second. I want to remind you can always find out more about the Best Innovation Group by checking out our website, big-fintech.com. I'm just going to put in a plug for the CU Town Hall as well. We just had a great one just this last week. I'm not sure if the replay is going to be posted yet by the time you're hearing this, but you can go out there and find out when our next event will be. I believe it is. It's always on a Wednesday, and it'll most likely be a Wednesday in late September, so we'll see where that falls. I don't know why that just reminded me of Rod Stewart. It's late September and I really should be back at school. I'll be actually probably out on the road because there's an awful lot going on out there these days. So check those out. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible with my early comments here and just because we have so much content to get into. But one thing that caught my eye, in fact, I learned about it from the stage at Fintech South. Somebody mentioned this and I had to look it up. It was new news in the middle of the week. You may have seen this by now. Google has actually made a $10 million bid and bought a big chunk of Spirit Airlines customer data for $10 million, which is interesting. I'll post a couple of links and a couple of different takes on that. On the social media feed that I was looking at in the comments, I thought it was fascinating that there was kind of an even split between people going, why would you pay that much money for that stuff? Or, gee, is that insanely cheap? They both can't be true, I don't think. No one really knows exactly what it is they bought. It does seem to have a lot of information in it about, one of the pieces I'm going to post shows that they may be able to get very smart about the travel business, which may help them create a whole new side of search around maybe going into maybe threatening Expedia or some folks like that along those lines. It's also primarily supposedly going to be used for LLM training. And in this day and age, it's a nice, clean process to do that. $10 million may not be so bad. It's also on hold right now because the pilots and flight attendants unions from Spirit Airlines are pushing back because it apparently includes Slack channel conversations and whatnot. And it's not 100% clear if the privacy issues are totally taken care of. Anyway, just another example of why data is the new oil. If I can just make another plug to that one, because it's just fascinating to me how much that comes into play. It reminds me of last week's podcast and the conversation we had with Luke Timberlake from Fintech Sandbox, which I highly recommend. And I'll post a link to that if you want to go back and check that one out. But with no further ado, let's jump in. Actually, first off, as I said, the MCs and a married couple, Kirsten and Julian Saunders of the Rich and Regular podcast, had some kind of ad hoc kind of comments they made on stage, which happened to kind of tie into payments. And I'm like, okay, guys, I got to talk about this one with you. And then I found out even more. So here's have a listen. I'm here with Julian and Kirsten Saunders, who are the hosts of the podcast Rich and Regular. And today they are the MCs of our annual Fintech South event here in Atlanta, Georgia. I thought you guys did a great job, but we're halfway through, I guess, today, at least in terms of the main stage events. And I just love the perspective that you bring to this. So
thank you.
Tell us a bit about Rich and Regular. I think, as you talked about, you're speaking everyday language to everyday people about finances.
Yeah, that's really the point. We learned, I want to say, shortly after we met, as we started dating, that money was one of those taboo subjects. We kind of learned that the hard way. And it actually led to a breakup. Our very first conversation about money led to a breakup. And luckily we were able to get back on the same page. And when we were done, we were kind of fascinated by what happened, like how something so good can get so bad really quickly. Yeah. And as we started to have those conversations with other people, that's when we realized there's something here, right? It's not necessarily that there's a shortage of resources or books or even podcasts. It's that people just don't really like talking about money. And so we've got to find ways to break through that, make it more palatable, in some cases, maybe even fun. And what comes from having more conversations is that you uncover what the real issues are. And that's when the change begins to happen. And so we love that feeling when it happened to us. And we have been on a mission to have more people, have that feeling and help them have their own breakthroughs.
I'm guessing that breakup episode is someplace in the archives?
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere.
So, and again, speaking everyday language, I thought you made a great point, Kirsten, on stage about, because, here we're talking to a fintech, expert audience, and, no one's talking APIs or, friction and things like that in the real world. How do you make it real and approachable for people? Like you said, Julian, it's like there's plenty of information out here. It's getting people to actually consume it in a way they're going to be comfortable.
Yeah, I think what we do is focus on the feeling. We aim for the heart and not the head. And so before we did this, we were in corporate marketing, sales, and branding. So we understand what it's like to be on the company side and have messaging that you want to push and products that you want to push. And all we do is create more space for people to see how that fits into their lives. And so we spend a lot of time just making sure that the problems that people ignore, they know have a solution, and that there's a partner out there, whether it's a credit union or a bank or an app, that can help them better navigate that in their lives.
And how do you tend to approach that? Do you bring on a guest with a specific problem, a guest with a particular solution, all of the above?
All of the above, but we also take advantage of our natural skill set. And so my very first job coming out of high school was as a cook. I cooked professionally for about 7 years. And so in a past life, it feels like I was a chef. So what came naturally to me was to use culinary and food metaphors, and then we extended that to start creating a series which is called Money on the Table. And basically it's a straight up rip from Parts Unknown or No Reservations. And we just realized again that people didn't really like talking about money, but they would certainly, or even history for that matter, right? But they loved watching it if there was some travel TV involved, there was some food involved. And so we said, why can't we do that with money? And so we started in 2020 essentially cooking meals at home while the world was shut down. And we were using that to show people how to cook, but also show people what it looks like to have a healthy conversation about money.
Was that the origin of Rich and Regular, or did you actually start before?
No, that was just an idea that came to us, right? We realized, hey, if I told people we're going to do an investing seminar, it was like, no, I'd rather watch anything but that.
Especially during COVID.
But hey, I'm going to show you how to make lobster in the microwave. That sounds interesting. And then I might be able to find some kind of metaphor to help connect the dots between that and fintech, because in a way you're using technology to do something that you didn't really know that you were able to do before. And so that sort of started to take on its own little thing, and we just started having fun with it. And so that's really been key, right? If we're not having fun with it, we certainly don't want to wake up, in the morning or have to stay somewhere late and force that issue.
And that's, to me, that's when it grows organically that way, because you're just doing something you enjoy and suddenly you look up and people are paying attention. So when you mentioned being a professional chef, were you a sole proprietor? Were you actually doing individual gigs? Because I'm thinking that puts you right in the role of having to go out and collect money.
It does, but no, I was an employee.
Okay, gotcha. So you're a W-2.
Working in hotels and restaurants, and learning that way.
So you made another comment on stage that was close to my heart, and I always talk about the fact that once you have kids, the checks kind of tend to rear their head again in the system. You're talking about baseball, or the school, I think the PTA.
The PTA,
you were saying all of a sudden you got a check to write again.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting for me is, as a president of my son's school PTA, not only do I need to write the check, sometimes I need to reimburse myself. So I'm signing both sides of the check. I've got to sign the check, I've got to sign the release form for the check before that, and then I've got to sign the back of the check to deposit it. And so between that and maybe the other, I'll probably end up signing over 200 checks this year as we reimburse people. And so it's little things like that, right? As I'm thinking about how to get more out of our all-volunteer board, it's like, well, let's save us some time. Let's start bringing in some technology that makes our life easier. The less time we're spending writing forms and checks, the more time we can actually spend, digging into the issues that are going to make our school better, and maybe even building relationships with local businesses so that we can bring in some more sponsorships to help fund field trips and so on. So it's been really interesting.
So I got my focus group right here now, because I'm always curious about this stuff. What do you find the biggest barrier to be? I've just got too many other things I got to do first, so I don't get around to that. I've got other volunteers who may not be as keen on. I think you mentioned grandparents writing checks too. So
Well, the biggest barrier to what?
to moving things off of paper checks?
Oh, I think it's just people are exhausted. Like we're exhausted with life, exhausted with parenting, dare I say even marriage.
I'm not going to take on
they
one
do
more
not
thing.
have the emotional capacity to do something no matter how easy you present it to be. And so going back to our approach is to stop trying to hit them over the head with the product and get to the heart of the issue and then present the solution. Let the solution sort of sprout as they are talking from the issue themselves. That's really been our bread and butter over the last couple of years. Because again, not only are you giving them the opportunity to learn something that can make their life easier, you're also learning something about them. You're learning how people talk about money, which it tends to be coded. It's like buried under these issues of like fatigue. It was like, oh, this is actually a financial issue. I didn't realize that, but it sounded like a conversation about parenting, you know, but then you realize there are a couple tools that you could use that could make all of this better.
I'm thinking of a company that came through our Innovation Challenge last year that dealt with exactly that, unfortunately more on the separated parent side, but how to deal with those expenses. But it speaks very well to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm going back to is that breakup episode. It sounds too good to miss. But if people want to find the Rich and Regular is the best search, and it's on all regular podcast platforms, the usual suspects?
Our podcast is on all podcast platforms. We also have social media, Instagram, Facebook, and then we have a YouTube channel where we post Money on the Table and other original series. So you can find us just about everywhere.
Except for TikTok.
We're not on TikTok
Okay.
yet. We missed that boat.
Well, we'll post a couple links so people can do that.
Awesome.
Julie and Kirsten, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So I really want to find that episode about how they almost broke up over money before they got together and wound up hosting a podcast about money together. So I found that one really interesting. Thanks to both a great job on stage, and also thanks for taking the time to talk to us, Kirsten and Julian. Let's now go in the order that the judges heard these pitches, which happened to be alphabetical order. On stage, as I said, 5 minutes was the time allotted for each of these to make their pitch. And then the judges, there were 5 judges who passed the mic and I think worked very well together to kind of tease out some additional information. They had 5 minutes for Q&A in each case. So let's jump in right there, as I say, starting in alphabetical order with Agentix. Here with Hussein Panjani, the founder and CEO of Agentix, who was one of the 3 finalists who got a chance to pitch on the main stage at Fintech South. Hussein, thanks for taking the time, kind of catching your breath after a whirlwind couple of days.
Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate it. Excited to be on the podcast.
So let's just kind of start out. First off, for people to understand, it's kind of right there in your name, Agentix, and even more so in your website, agentixpay.ai. That tells people what you're after. But can you say a bit more kind of about the value proposition?
Yeah, so consumers are naturally shifting to LLMs first to search for products. We give e-commerce platforms and merchants the X factor to make sure that their products get found first and are actually transactable with enabled checkout right then and there where the consumer is seeing the product. Basically, we're building agentic commerce for dummies, which enables e-com platforms and merchants at a variety of technical skill sets to be able to use our capabilities.
I thought you had a great way of doing that. I've seen you do a couple presentations where you have people raise their hand if they've used some type of AI, and then every hands go up. But then when it gets to the point of and who's actually closed a transaction there, the hands go down. So that's the bridge that you're trying to build.
Yeah, that's a fun play that I like to do when I pitch. I'll ask the audience who here has searched for a product on an LLM, and it's about 90 to 95% of hands go up. Then I ask them who was able to actually buy that product using the LLM, and everyone's hands goes down. And that is the exact problem that we solve at Agentix.
I mean, it's a bold goal. It's a big lift, I would think. What does it require, in terms of partnerships with the big players, or just cooperation, interoperability? How do you go about this?
Yeah, it's a big goal, but we're already making it happen, and we're capturing revenue right now. So what we do is we help these merchants through their product structure, making sure that an agent can find their product first. That's the foundation layer for them to be visible first. Then we'll work with their teams to enable agentic checkout on the LLM or on the retailer's page, which will generate new revenue, new customers, and a new sales channel.
So I think you kind of indirectly answered the next question I was going to ask. You're primarily engaging with the merchants. That's That's your customer and you're thinking maybe like ISVs might be a way to get to more of them?
Yes, that's right. We work with ISVs or e-commerce platforms and direct merchants.
And you mentioned that you're already generating revenue. What is the revenue model? How does it actually come when you get into your hands?
Yeah, so we grow as the e-commerce platform grows. Think of us as a trusted enablement partner that helps them scale. So we charge a standard SaaS fee, think like 1.5K to 3K per month to the e-commerce platform. And we charge a small take rate for any net new transaction that Agentix facilitates that the merchant pays.
So net new meaning, and how do you define net new?
Yeah, so net new is any type of transaction that Agentix was able to facilitate that the merchant was not able to. So, for example, by having the product being sold on an LLM, that is a Agentix facilitated transaction. By having the product go through the retailer's transactional chatbot that we've created, that is a Agentix facilitated transaction. Anything that goes to their standard platform, standard ecom channels is not covered as part of our take rate.
Got it. So you're really only the things that are fulfilled through your channels are the only piece that you're actually taking.
Exactly, which is why we help them and we grow as they grow.
And if I can channel no pun intended, if I channel one of the judges that was speaking, I know they had the question at one point. It sounds like a relatively high price point. I mean, what's your thought about, where that may settle over time?
Yeah, naturally, we know that there will be margin compression. And as we drive distribution, we are flexible on the rate. At the end of the day, we want to help e-commerce platforms and their merchants grow. So we will work with the merchants one-on-one or the e-commerce platforms one-on-one and negotiate a proper rate.
Got
We
it.
also give a rebate back to the e-commerce platform once they pass specific payment thresholds and transaction thresholds, which incentivizes them to use Agentix.
Got it. So say a bit more. I know that you've got a pretty good couple of pretty darn good resumes in terms of your founder team and your team right now. This is obviously one of those things. What's the pedigree that gets people comfortable that you're the ones that are the best team to tackle this problem?
Yeah, we have deep founder market fit because our team has over 60 years of fintech and leadership experience. Me personally, I've been at FIS, WorldPay, Visa, AIG, and Income Payments. Each of these roles were focused on either sales growth strategy, commercialization, and scaling products to market. Kareem has over 25 years of experience with leadership roles at Amex, MasterCard, Oracle, SFox, and more. And he has launched multiple products on the tech side and has led a budget of over 12 million at Amex. So both of us bring deep domain expertise. We do have Nadia, who's a project manager, who's also on the team that has previously worked at RBC. And our advisors have been former CEOs, CPOs, CGOs at companies like FIS, MasterCard, Block, WorldPay, and more.
So I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying I think that Agentix is probably the furthest along of the cohort that we had in our most recent innovation challenge. What are kind of the next steps for you? I mean, fundraising, partnerships, where are you focusing the majority of your attention right now?
Yeah, it's completely focused on partnerships and distribution. So we want to scale and work with e-commerce platforms and multiple merchants, working with them to make sure that they get an edge over their competitors by using Agentix. We can work as their X factor. We're open to white labeling so that they're able to show that they're innovative in market and they can grow. And we are finalizing our pre-seed raise as well.
Gotcha. And that'd be a great conversation. It's kind of a compliment to the interview we did with Luke Timberlake last week, where the world of pre-seed has changed quite a bit, but it seems like you're very well equipped to meet those new criteria. So regardless of the type of listener, ISV, investor, merchant, what's the best place to go to find out more?
Yeah, so you can email us at hello@agentixpay.ai or go to our website, www.agentixpay.ai.
Wonderful. Hussein Punjani, founder, CEO of Agentix. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
I really liked how the judges this year had a wide range of business models to assess. which to some extent can make things even more challenging to get an apples to apples comparison. But at the same time, I think it's just fun to have just a demonstration of the wide range of solutions out there in the marketplace and the pain points people are trying to address. So now let's kind of jump in a different direction. So another company that's got AI in its name, but is a very different proposition, Lux AI. I'm here with Naya Chapman, the founder and CEO of Lux AI, a company that I've had the privilege of really getting to know over the last 4 weeks, I guess probably 5 weeks now, as they were part of our TAG FinTech Innovation Challenge down here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Lux was one, and Naya was one of the three finalists who had a chance to pitch on stage here at FinTech South last week. Naya,
Mhm.
thanks for taking the time.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive in.
So this, maybe the best way if you just kind of start with the value proposition and your elevator pitch, the thing that caught my ear every time you did this is this really jaw-dropping number of $360 billion. So why don't I just kind of lay that out there and let you grab it from there?
Yeah, so 360 billion is a huge number. And that number really represents all of your unredeemed credit card rewards, perks, benefits, gift cards that are just sitting in your inbox or in your credit card portal, waiting for you to redeem them, but you're often too busy doing other things and they expire.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess the value proposition you've got, it's one thing to find out that, someone gives you an alert that it expires, but you're taking it a step further than that, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So think of all the times where you've gotten that email or a text that says, you get that email from Amex and it says, hey, your, $100 Resi credit is expiring, and you go on about your day and you forget about it and it doesn't roll over, so it's lost. So Lux AI is very different. We are building a proactive AI model concierge platform that gives you a very specific recommendation. For example, if you have that Amex Resi credit and we know you love Italian food, we'll give you a recommendation to an Italian restaurant that just opened up in your neighborhood where you can use your Amex, redeem that Resi credit. But Luxie, the agent on the platform, doesn't just give you the suggestion. She'll actually go and book the reservation for you.
That's cool. That is very, and I think you gave another example, I think, of a personal experience, or maybe it was just kind of a hypothetical about going and
Yeah.
traveling and not even realizing you had an opportunity to get a night or two free off the bill.
Yes, absolutely. So girls trip, we all have these great trips that we plan, and I thought I had it all figured out. I, you know, did all of like the maximizing on my own, and I planned it for $3,500. And I get home and I'm looking through my credit card portals and just kind of like my emails, and I saw that I could have gotten 2 nights free. My breakfast could have been free. I mean, and it was a $1,500 savings. And so imagine what you're missing out on your day to day, not just traveling, but your day to day, you're missing out on all of those benefits that you just don't have time to figure out.
So you've been, I mean, as any good founder, you've kind of pivoted along the way, as I understand it.
Yeah.
You first off, you've bootstrapped this business, right? You started this basically, you're self-funded.
Yes, yeah. I have bootstrapped up until the end of last year. So all of this really started as a point hacking newsletter. So think the points guy, where I was giving advice on how to use your credit cards and point hack your way into the best restaurants and hotels and all the things. And Glenn, it was a lot of work.
Oh, I can, and that was how many years back? This is obviously well before anybody was thinking about AI, I believe, right?
Yeah, so we officially launched like the end of 2020, that newsletter. And yeah, ran that for a couple of years, and it's funny how when you evolve, like I said, it was a lot of work to do all the time. But the thing that was missing, even though the newsletter was personalized, the user still had to go and search through the newsletter to find the recommendation.
Hmm.
And so we have turned that newsletter into more of a data-driven AI product where now we have all of your preferences. We use some of your spending data to really build that profile of who you are. So that way we can really personalize the concierge redemption experience for you.
And that's, I mean, that's where you kind of go from a newsletter into needing IT resources and your own portal. And if I'm
Yeah.
recalling correctly, you use Plaid to get some of that data together.
Yes, yeah, we use Plaid. There's some other aggregators that we also use as well. But the best thing about starting with a newsletter was I already had tons of data. What programs connect to what brands, the terms and conditions. AI just made it easier for us to synthesize and analyze all of that information in order to give the user the best personalized experience.
Now, you're not
So
you're not going to tell me that was a grand scheme, was it? Or to kind of at some point down the path, you're like, wait a second, I've got all this stuff. I can do other things with it.
I mean, I'm a data girl, so I knew what I was doing. When I built that newsletter, I already knew what I was doing, but people were so focused on building social media, and I said, "No, I'm going to build a newsletter because I mean, we as a company own that data." And so yeah, we just use that to continue to build and evolve the product and our models. And the people that have supported us in the beginning are really excited for this new product.
Let me tee up one of the questions that one of the judges asked on the main stage.
Yes, great.
And I think you can probably tell from the name Lux, you're focused right now on the premium card market, and that's kind of the entry point. How do you think about this kind of extending beyond that relatively, I mean, lucrative but relatively small slice of the population?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really interesting when you hear Lux, you obviously hear really niche. But the fact of the matter is, premium card holders are getting younger, and that is a according to Amex new their call that they had last at the end of last quarter, right? They're saying that card holders are getting a lot younger, and the premium card holder segment is actually bigger than you think that it is. Amex has 323 million premium card holders. That's a lot. That's worldwide. But when we think about expanding past premium card holders, right? That's the wedge. We're really focused on the B2B to C side, right? Which is partnering with the networks and the issuers, specifically the networks. When you think of Amex, when you think of MasterCard, Visa, Discover, they all have a concierge that they offer all of their card holders. Every single card holder, whether it's a premium card or not, they have a concierge, but you have to email them or call them. That doesn't seem right. And so
Hmm.
my goal would be to partner with these networks to essentially be their concierge for them and not only provide the cardholders with this deeply personalized experience, but on the enterprise side, give their employees or their people front of line working the concierge the ability to make better personalized decisions for the cardholders once they call in. So
So it's the ride
yeah,
along assistant that you've got right there to kind of tee it up.
yes, yes, definitely. So it's kind of we're starting at the premium cardholder segment because they're the ones paying for all of these benefits.
Right.
Lower to mid-tier cardholders, they're not paying for any of these benefits, but the higher tier cardholders are, and they're leaving it on the table, and they're used to having assistants, they're used to having concierge. We're just there to make it a little bit easier for them.
And you've mentioned concierge. So, I mean, that's obviously the model you're using. And you mentioned to me also from a distribution network, not only
Yeah.
the networks, but you're also looking at like professional clubs and things where they may have a concierge again at the front desk. And this could be an aid
Yes.
for them.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, the end game with issuers, the sales cycle is long, right? It could be 2, 4 years before you even get a yes. So, what do we do before that, right? Going direct to consumer, which I feel like is my superpower, but it can be expensive. But thinking of every entity or corporate organization that has a concierge. It's typically hospitality, it's typically membership clubs. And so partnering with membership clubs like Soho House, Gathering Spot, where the premium card holders are already a part of, it's just a win-win situation for all parties. Us, the membership club, and their members slash card holders.
Well, I love it, and I mean, obviously, as we know that you made it to the finals of this competition, a lot of other people and a lot of judges loved it as well. If people want to find out more, Well, first off, what is your primary ask at this point? Are you looking for investment, people to be aware of it and sign up? Obviously, the networks you want to talk to.
I mean,
What's your next goal, and how should people find out more?
listen, all of the above.
Okay.
Obviously, number one, we're looking for users of the platform. If you have a premium card, if you've ever signed up for a loyalty program, if you have an email account, I would love for you to visit unlock.lux. That's Lux with an E, and sign up. And then also for the enterprise partners, if you are an issuer and you run customer engagement, I would love to just have a conversation with any of the networks or the issuers to really figure out what are some of your challenges with customer engagement and increasing card spend. And then we can figure out how Lux AI can improve those for you.
Perfect. Nia
Yes.
Chapman, founder CEO of Lux AI. We'll post a link to the URL you just mentioned in the show notes as well, so people can follow along.
Yes.
Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
And from Lux AI, let's transition to the other end of the spectrum and the not-for-profit model of street charity. I'm here with John Patton, the CEO and co-founder of Street Charity, who I've had the honor of getting to know over the course of the last month through the Innovation Challenge program that we've been running here in Atlanta, Georgia. John and his company were among the three finalists who got to pitch on the main stage yesterday at Fintech South. So I want to just kind of recap. I think it's a brilliant model he's got going, and it's really kind of, captured my imagination. First, John, thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you, Glenn, so much, and thanks for being such an inspiring mentor for me. Not knowing the world of fintech, you've been an incredible guide.
Well, I mean, inspirational goes both ways on this one. Why don't you kind of just lay out in the 60-second, 90-second version of what Street Charity is all about?
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, so we really didn't know much about fintech, but we knew that feeding the hungry people in our community was certainly foremost in our minds and hearts. But we didn't like the options that we had. Handing out dollar bills was certainly not the answer, as it often promotes behavior that people don't want to fund necessarily. People want to help feed people, but when they buy food or hand out food, make food, take people to eat, there's still a gap there. There's still, I'm telling someone what they should eat and when they should eat it. And so we asked the question, could there be a card that is kind of a universal prepaid card that would work across all fast food and quick serve restaurants, so that people could have the dignity of choice, choosing what they want to eat, when they want to eat it, where they want to eat it. And we didn't know if that was possible. And so we started picking up the phone and calling. And one day we found a great champion at Discover Network, and they said, we can make this happen for you. And so we developed the card, and we'll talk about some of the other aspects that it has, but that is the basis for it. Now we can hand out a card and ensure a meal.
So yeah, a couple of things that I kind of along the way. I mean, always it's like great idea, and you kind of get the yeah buts. And every yeah but so far, I think you've really got good answers for. First off, you mentioned, and we can talk about, for people who are listening to this podcast, probably understand the MCC code. So the idea, I think you said 240,000. It's quick serve restaurants. That's the code, that the only place these things are valid.
That's right. That was one of the deals. We wanted to make sure that this was different than just giving someone a gift card that could be used possibly for alcohol or cigarettes or somewhere else, or possibly lost and never redeemed. And so we were able to restrict the redemption to just fast food and quick serve restaurants, which is fabulous because one, they have affordable food. Two, they allow just about anybody to come inside. And then three, it really, they're everywhere. I mean, you don't have to get out a map. You just open your eyes and they're on every single corner.
Well, you just said something I want to follow up on because this was probably the single biggest kind of eye opener to me was you said they allow almost anybody to come inside. And my first thought, and I guess it crossed your mind too in this process, is how, do people want these customers coming inside? And you actually went out and did some testing in the marketplace.
I did. I always tell entrepreneurs, got to test your idea before you go to market and go to development even. So I walked into a Chick-fil-A, a local store, asked for the manager, the owner, and we had a conversation. I said, I've got this idea, but I'm a little concerned that maybe you won't like the fact that we're going to be sending some people from the street into your restaurants. And he stopped me and he said, John, they're already here. We're already feeding them, but we're paying and we're sending the food out the back door. You're going to send them through the front door as patrons, paying full freight. And we're gonna love that. And it was an aha moment, and that was the green light we needed.
It's funny. This is kind of off topic. I remember there was a movie about street teen youth in Seattle back in the 80s called Streetwise. It was a documentary. And they showed like one of the scams they would run is they would order incredibly complicated, and this is back in the days of payphones. They'd pick them up on the street and they'd order incredibly complicated pizza orders that nobody else would possibly want. And then when they turned out to be no-shows and they put them in the dumpster, they would come back. So talk about feeding people out the back door, not even in a benevolent fashion like you're talking about. This is cases where people are kind of creating kind of spoilage to serve their purposes. But I mean, I think that's a really great point. The other thing that you've mentioned, and again, another one that I think was kind of eye-opening if you really thought about it. The cards say $5. That's the denomination on. But you've actually given some thought to the fact that there's not a whole lot of meal options for $5 on the cards or on
Yes,
in the basic menus.
you're right, and we did the testing there too. We went to people and said, "Hey, how much would you be comfortable handing a complete stranger on the sidewalk?"
Okay,
And
so
the
this is the testing of the actual donors. So, okay.
This was the donor test, and they say, well, $1 is really not enough, and $10 I don't really feel like I'm going to be just handing out $10 bills everywhere. But five felt like a good middle ground. And then there are a lot of 3.99, 49, 4.99 meals out there, value meals in fast food. But to your point, we wanted to make sure that if they did get a 4.99 meal or a $5 meal, that we would be able to cover the tax on that purchase. And so we picked the highest tax rate in the country, which is Hawaii, and that's 64 cents on a $5 meal. And so the cards are actually loaded with $5.64. And that's a big deal. We don't want people to turn down. Now, you can also redeem multiple cards. So I personally hand out, two or three cards to somebody, and then they have the power to either go in and have $15 worth of food, or they can keep one in their pocket for a rainy day, a literal rainy day when they need to get some shelter out of the weather. So lots of options, but we're putting the power of choice in their hands.
And you mentioned also, I mean, when you think about the working poor, I mean, this is not just people kind of panhandling on the street. A couple of examples you gave, like, social service organizations that are bringing people in for training and things that will get these in bulk because rather than bringing in food at lunch, they've got people in that need to eat. They may not have the wherewithal themselves. So you're actually dealing with kind of multiple distribution channels too, right?
You're so right. While we started it with the idea of street charity on the street, we quickly expanded because we saw the opportunities for like you said, the working poor, the mom who works and the dad who works and the kids who come home from school with no one there to cook for them and they're too young to cook. And these cards are fabulous for them. They're fabulous for a family that doesn't get the privilege of going out together and having happy meals and playing in the playground of a fast food restaurant. I mean, these are things some of us take for granted, but they're absolute epic kind of holiday experiences.
And you kind of touched on something else too that you pointed out, and I believe you said that you volunteer at soup kitchens and food banks and whatnot, which are great solutions, but they have their own restrictions. I mean, you have to have a car, you have to have a kitchen. Say a bit about
You
that.
do. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's funny how our country has evolved so dynamically and rapidly technologically, and yet we're still kind of putting up these solutions like food banks and soup kitchens with very little progress in terms of their adaptability for people living in their cars, people living in motels without any kitchen equipment to help. I mean, what am I going to do with a can of beans if I don't even have a can opener, or fork and knife? These restaurants, the fast food industry has all that. They have all the ketchup I need. They have all the napkins. They'll take out the trash for me. I mean, it's unbelievable. People have likened it to Uber. They've said you've Uberized, the fast food industry to kind of turn, all these restaurants into feeding places, stations for people who are hungry, whoever that is. So it's pretty dynamic.
I'm guessing people probably are thinking this because I did as well. There's again, a fancy term that they use in the payment space is cheat. I mean, you've got the unused, there's spoilage. It's kind of the dirty secret of credit cards. There's the unused balances. And I think that was where it really clicked to me that you guys had really thought through the process. Talk a little bit about what happens with the unused balances.
Thank you. So that was another barrier to people being generous, to me being generous. I didn't want to hand out, a gift card out the window and risk, having someone throw it in the trash or lose it, because then my donation's gone. And so we made sure that these funds would expire after 6 months if they weren't fully redeemed or they weren't redeemed at all. And the monies would come back to our nonprofit, and then we could donate to food banks and soup kitchens and shelters and groups in the community that are serving those in need. And so now people can hand out a card, and they know for sure, absolute guarantee, someone's going to get help.
I love that. I mean, and it is 6 months. So, which again is a pretty short period of time for a street, but it's not your typical kind of thing where people are like, oh, wait a second, I paid for this card, it's expiring. This is purely a safeguard. And like you say, a lot of them probably have, 47 cents left on them. And guess what? That adds up over time. You also
It
use the
does.
not-for-profit that I'm glad you got in there as well, which you were the only not-for-profit that actually was part of our cohort this year and wound up being one of the final three on the main stage.
Well, I was so honored, but I take my hat off to you and the Innovation Challenge team and to TAG for opening it up to a nonprofit. It was very unusual for us to get in, and man, it made a difference in our education and in our expansion and awareness that we were able to glean.
So if people want to find out more, streetcharity.org, best place to go.
Best place is to go to streetcharity.org. And I'll just mention, like you did, that individuals can donate there and become monthly donors. And what's exciting is that we actually send cards to each monthly donor to their house, to their mailbox, so that they are equipped every day of the week in their car, in their wallet, wherever they walk, travel. It works nationwide. So people can have a card and be equipped. And then the second, is that people have organizational connections, right? They work for a PTA, they work for part of a Rotary Club or a church, and so they can buy the cards in bulk. They make a donation, and we send them 25, 50, 100 cards if they want. And then, of course, people are welcome to just make cash donations, and we're just privileged to be able to serve our donors as well as the people in need. So, thanks so much, Glenn, for championing our work.
John Patton, CEO, co-founder of Street Charity. Love the mission, love the model. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Now, you may have noticed I never mentioned which of these three startups actually was the judge's choice to win the $25,000 Innovation Challenge prize. Let's have some fun with this. We did this last year too. I thought it was kind of fun to see what people thought. You could go out and find the answer online if you wanted. It's been posted. It's out there on. I know I've seen a couple of different pictures of the winner holding the big check on stage, but I'm not offering you $25,000 to guess on this. I'm not even offering you $25, but I don't know if you convince me and push me hard enough, maybe I'll send you a street charity card if you want to do that. But I'd like to just have you take after having a listen to all these, drop us a line at the Bigcast. Actually, why don't you just do it via the Best Innovation Groups? Let's do the LinkedIn page. Might be the easiest way. If you're not following the Best Innovation Group on LinkedIn, you probably should be. So if you look them up, follow, and then drop a note, a DM with what you thought would be is the best. Or if you happen to see my post about this, again, my name is Glenn Sarvati of 154 Advisors. Respond to that and let us know which one you thought was the best. And then next week, we'll let you know which of these won and see if it lines up with our listeners' opinions of how they voted. But I can tell you the judges were very complimentary of all three, and had really good comments, really interesting comments across the board. And as I said, the apples to apples comparison was a little bit tricky, but I guess that's to be expected when you're dealing about things that are this diverse and people at different stages of their development of their products. With that, another episode of the Big Cast in the books. Again, my name is Glenn Sarvati. I've already told you about my LinkedIn profile and the Best Innovation Group's profile. You can find John Best, our grand poobah, there as well. But more importantly, you can find the Best Innovation Group at the website big-fintech.com. So check that out as well. We've got more content and new content for you coming next week. I'll leave it at that, and you can check in. If you can remember to check it out, please do. If you are listening on a podcast player, as you probably know by now, we're available on all of them: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, etc. Like, subscribe, whatever it is they have you do, and you'll get a reminder when the new episode is out there. So again, thanks to Fintech South. Really enjoyed my time out there. I thought it really came together nicely. Finally gives me a chance to use a line I've been waiting for some time. Andre 3000 of Outkast, you may know, at the Source Awards when they won Best New Rap Band in 1995. He got up there and grabbed the microphone and said, "The South's got something to say." And that's kind of the way I felt about Fintech South this week. So with that, have a great week, and thanks again for listening.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech, email info@big-fintech.com, or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.